So that is Great Friars Gate, one of Coventry's medieval gates. Now, the reason I got that there is because that stood outside the door here. You almost bump into it if you walked out the door. You've been here in medieval times. So that's the entrance to Coventry's medieval city. The reason why I'm mentioning that, I'll go all the way around, is you can see on this map, if I can do my pointer, you can see on this map, I think easier if I actually hold that, probably. You can see on this map there's a big open area, and that's called Poddycroft. Where we are is at the top of that row of buildings that you can see going across diagonally. This big straight line at the end of that open area is the line of the city wall, and the top of that area is defined by the River Sherborne. So this is early Victorian map, and at that point Poddycroft was basically land that was used for grazing, but only in the summer because it flooded in the winter. So this is an area of the city that flooded. Greyfriars Green was slightly higher land, so it didn't flood, and the Victorians had started building small villas on there. So that's where we were with that. This is the Reform Club that is our neighbour next door. So if it's for a Saturday morning, if you think about on the right hand side, after that archway which has now been blocked up, those are the cottages, those are the early Victorian cottages that Rover bought, demolished and built their showroom on in 1911. Oh, sorry, I'll get the hang of this eventually. That's another map. You can see the same row of houses. There's still the houses at this point, but this is quite a transition map. If you go to the left-hand side of the building, you can see Queen Victoria Road and the St John's Work, which is a cycle factory on Queen's Road as well. A pointing stick. I've actually got a little thing on here, but I can't work out where it works from. I can. I'll do that. We've got it. Yeah. So there's the St John's Works there. There's the St John's Works. But at the top, you can see that the world starts changing. So this map is slightly later, this top bottom map, and you can see Garfield Road there, which later became Rover Road. And these are the starts of the thing. So this is the transition between this still being agricultural gardens, possibly orchards, and Coventry's industrialisation, which happened basically on the banks of the River Sherborne as it went through the city. Those banks were basically either side, early factories, cycle, car, machine tool, other factories were being built on there. No, I'm still enough. Right. And here we can see the view of what we were looking at on the previous map. So the Rover Road I mentioned, Garfield Road, was basically went through there, and that was the front of the Meteor Works. This is the line of the city wall again, going up, originally went up, Bullyard was actually in this area, and this used to be a medieval pub that had a bowling green. It got bought in the Napoleonic era, turned into a barracks. But this is the building we're interested in. So this is effectively the front of the Meteor Works. A row of houses in front of that, and these later buildings, Victoria and Albert Building, which we'll see remains of this one when we go on the walking tour. You can see the back of where we are now. So this is the building we're in here, and this is the back of what was originally a storeroom, which they then built the showroom in front of the storeroom. This is Bullyard. So this is the lane that followed the line of the city wall. And that's the chimney that was part of the factory. And you can see here the sheds that were part of the factory. So this is literally, if we follow, when we go out, we'll follow the line of the town wall. That's where that lane went. And you can see this lorry here that says, Coventry Produce Market. Again, it was delivering to the Barrett's Market that was in there. And this is an early picture of the building that was here. So, not the facade we have now, although basically most of the interior is the same building. Quite a modern construction from 1911. There's a bit on the fire escape if you go around the tour, where you can see a cross-section of the floors. They're hollow concrete, reinforced concrete beams. So it's basically a really modern for 1911 construction method, a frame with these floors, which meant that they could just hang this terracotta glass front off the front of it. That's not structural, that's just decorative for the thing. And you can see evidence of the mezzanine floor. So the floor was the height of the whole of this room we're in at the moment. And there it is, again, next to the 3 Tons pub, the original 3 Tons pub, which was at the edge of Bull. This is a recent photograph of something that's up in the roof space. You can't actually see it. You can see where it is, but you can't see it. We're hoping at some point to try and work out some way of doing almost like some sort of live feed to see whether we see it. It's the lift mechanism. So the 3 floors here were connected by a lift. So when you go on your walking tour and you go up the main staircase, that was actually the lift shaft. And the lift, might not surprise you, the lift was big enough to hold, for instance, the 1907 car that we got outside, because they moved the cars up the floors and moved other things up the floors as well. We've just come across a tragic incident of a death in 1919 where somebody died in the lift shaft. And it must have been his health and safety. When you read the article, you end up thinking, even now you think that's not happening. But the mechanism is still there. This is King George V examining shells. So presumably this is somewhere during the First World War. You can tell it's displaced partly because of the columns and the windows. And then if you look in the background, that's no city, that's a car. In the bottom left-hand, in the top right-hand corner, that's a car in the showroom. So we do know that they did move the cars up and down the floors. This is a sort of pre-war map, and they've cleverly tried to disguise that there's no factory here, just in case the Germans think that start not trying to identify them. But you can see by this point, this whole area is factories. We've got the Rudge Works over on Spon Street, and we've got here, and there are other factories that are going up right in the centre of the city. The city centre was, to be honest, medieval frontages and fairly squalid, cramped industrial backed to those places. This is probably just the quality, but 1932 I think it was, Rover managed to sell Jaguar, or SS as it was in those days, a pub. So they no longer needed, I think about that point they built Meteor Works number 3, Helen Street, and I think the whole dealership thing had taken over from the need to have their own showroom. So they sold it to SS Jaguar, who promptly managed to sell it on to Coventry Corporation, because they were starting to acquire properties that they wanted to use, that the government had said, you need to have some buildings you can use during the war. So this is the sandbags that were for Coventry's food and rations office. So this is the foods and rations office. And we've probably just lost the generation that remember this, losing the generation that remembers this as a ration office. Rather wonderful photograph that would have been in here, somewhere like where the bar is, of people collecting their, mainly women obviously, collecting their food and clothing coupons. So quite a lot of the public would have known this space at that point. But that's not the only thing that the City Council had in the building. They also had installed Donald Gibson, who, with a bit of foresight, they'd employed in 1937 as the city's architect. And he'd already started redeveloping parts of the city centre. He'd completed Trinity Street which is the other side of Broadgate by the wall, and he'd also demolished most of what became Corporation Street. Had already happened before the war. But he based himself here, and we've got quite a few little bit anecdotes that we found of both before and after the war of him being here. But those are models of the, obviously possibly post-Blitz, models of the reconstructed city centre. This is the works after the Blitz. So this is an aerial photograph showing some of the damage. So you can see that's one of the steam chimneys. This bit here looks like it was extensively damaged, and you can see the holes that are in all the roof spaces that are there. So some quite extensive damage here. You can see this bit, again, quite extensively damaged. So that was what happened to the building during the war. This is a picture from the 1960s when they were redeveloping Coventry. Quite an unusual one. You can sort of see where, so this is the, what's now Flannels, which was the British Home Stores. This is Coventry's circular market being built, and these are hoardings from that. But this is one of the sheds that was here. So this is part of the Meteor works, this light here. And the architects department didn't use the top floor. They also used some of the usable shed spaces as well, the workshop spaces. So you can see these murals they've done. They did use some of these for exhibitions. These are photographs they took in about 1966 as they were demolishing this area to build City Arcade, earlier than that, late 50s, to build City Arcade and Shelton Square. So these are the this is the original Meteor factory in here, and you can see where we are. That's the church next door. So this building is just here, and that's what one of the sheds would have looked, workshops would have looked like when they were working in them. So I've not got conclusive proof it's the same shed as in the previous photograph, but basically it's part of the same complex. So you can see the north-facing lights, and you can see the structural work, and they're making bodies on there. And that's another closer view of that part of the building. And I think these were some of the exhibition pieces that they were using to rebuild the city. Donald Gibson moved up to Broadgate House, took his department up to Broadgate House by 1954, and he then got the architects of what's now the Primark building in Broadgate. He got them to transform this building, and to be honest, all they really did was build 2 new lift shafts, convert the existing lift shaft into stairs, and then put this new mezzanine in, and put the signature oriel window and refacaded the front. So again, like the original one, this is a new facade on the original structure, and it was several different furniture, kitchen and clothes shops during the 50s and 60s, and a lot of people in Coventry remember it as Intershop in the 80s and 90s. It was almost like a mini market. So this place, and there's vestiges of, for instance, their carpet there. That's really all I'm going to say about the building. We've had what's called a LiDAR scan, so it's basically a 3D scan done of the building. So we have a file that we can wander around and virtually look at the building. And did you do the labelling on this, Alan, or was that? The labelling on this was done by the guy who did the LiDAR, or he did, yeah. So we've got these labelled as well as the different parts of the building. So that's basically where we are. So I'm going to finish on the building there. We are going to, after the other 2 talks, going to go on a walk around. So thank you for listening.